Less than 2 out of every 5 people will achieve a goal,
So
even when they have hired.
any goal at all, period.
For the most part, it's what we see in terms of some of the research that comes out around outcome satisfaction from clients.
Okay. So less than 40%
Yeah.
will achieve that goal. All right.
Yeah. Not
So-
great.
No, not great.
Now, in contrast, just to provide some reference, that's 4 times greater than the 10% of people that achieve a goal on their own with no oversight, accountability structure, anything like that. So we know that from goal setting, like New Year's resolution, or specifically is the largest group that they'll follow.
So you have nearly a 4 times higher likelihood of achieving your goal when you hire a coach.
Yes.
Welcome back to Beyond the Pump, where we talk about the business of fitness and nutrition. And today we're going to talk about goal digging. You heard that right. Not to gold digging, goal digging. And there's a couple people out there that have this mentality of, oh, my client got results, it's time for them to move on. And on one side, I will say there's an ethical responsibility to ensure that that happens. But on the other side, are you doing enough and are you helping them enough? Because at the end of the day, most people likely achieve a goal and then set a new goal. And this is assuming that people even achieve the goal. So, Andrew, kind of starting off here, how many people typically achieve the goal that they set out to achieve when it comes to getting a coach within the time frame that they thought they were going to achieve it, and just all the stuff that might accumulate to, cool, I got success?
Less than 2 out of every 5 people will achieve a goal,
So
even when they have hired.
any goal at all, period.
For the most part, it's what we see in terms of some of the research that comes out around outcome satisfaction from clients.
Okay. So less than 40%
Yeah.
will achieve that goal. All right.
Yeah. Not
So-
great.
No, not great.
Now, in contrast, just to provide some reference, that's 4 times greater than the 10% of people that achieve a goal on their own with no oversight, accountability structure, anything like that. So we know that from goal setting, like New Year's resolution, or specifically is the largest group that they'll follow.
So you have nearly a 4 times higher likelihood of achieving your goal when you hire a coach.
Yes.
Okay. Makes sense. So fair case to go achieve or to hire that coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've heard the argument a couple of times of, a person achieves the goal and then I let them go and it's time to kind of move on. And there's 2 sides to that, I think. And, I think the first point that I kind of want to make is the more frequently or the more quickly that a client leaves the business, the worse of a business model it is, or maybe not worse, but the more pressure you put on the acquisition side of your business model. So my thing there comes down to, if you have the ability to help somebody achieve the next goal in line or another goal or some version thereof, it is your responsibility to yourself, your business, and that person, because you already have a relationship built, rapport built, all the things. You've already proven success, to continue with them in the pursuit of the next goal is the way that I see that. And if, and somebody comes in, and you said it yesterday, I believe, that it takes a period of time to achieve the goal. So weight loss, I think. And you said that if you lose weight, then 50% of the weight you lost on average comes back in 2 years. And then more than 100% of the weight that you lost comes back in 5 years.
Correct.
I think you said. So hearing that, I immediately go to, well, all right, I got them to achieve the goal. It's now my responsibility to ensure they can keep the goal longer. And we're talking about weight loss in this specific one. But what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really important to call out that when people come to you looking for a specific outcome, whether it's weight loss, whether it's muscle gain, and we're just keeping this more relevant for health coaches, but please understand what we're talking about is widely universally utilitarian. The main thing that you hire a contractor for probably isn't going to be necessarily the entire scope of the project. In fact, it's going to be probably very small, which is why you want to go in there and scope out the entirety of the project. What are all the weird things? What's the pre-work that has to happen? And so when we consider for most weight loss, people are going to have to understand how to work out, which means they need to understand in a workout, if we drill these things down, you need to understand how to warm up. You need to understand the proper mechanics of different lifts. And that takes an adoption curve, because let's say you squat 1 time, it probably wasn't pretty and it probably wasn't heavy. Well, if you make it pretty, then you can make it heavier, which means that there's an exponential curve in terms of progress.
Of course it wasn't heavy.
It wasn't.
It was your warm-up.
Is your warm? Relax, Steve. Warm-up strip. No kidding. No one warms up. So we have to trick Steve into warming up. No, we're working out. It's just neuromuscular. So funny. So if you haven't subscribed to see the workout stuff, make sure you check it out. But I mean, it's so the work itself is, I would say, probably less than 1/3 of the entirety of the equation. You got to figure out what works, and that's where the pre-work comes in. Of let's teach you the skills, let's put the skills together, and let's try them in different combinations until we find the winning formula, and then let's just dump gasoline on that, and then accelerate the rest of your progress. But that pre-work, I'd say, is probably about 60% of it. And I love this quote that Abraham Lincoln said of, if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I would spend the first 4 sharpening my axe. And I think that there's some validity to that, although sometimes people can overthink it. But hiring a coach to help you figure out what works best for you quickly is probably the benefit of that. And then on the back end, what it takes to get there will be drastically different for the most part of what it takes to stay there. Mm-hmm. Because usually, if you recall, and if you haven't seen this episode yet, we talk about competence and like unconscious incompetence, where you have no idea that you're ignorant. Conscious incompetence, where you know that you have a deficiency and you know that I'm not great at this thing. Conscious competence, which is still very much in your head and you have to very much think about it. If you've ever seen a kid try to brush their teeth for the first time, you can see them like they know conceptually they have to do this, but it's like all over the place. And over the years, it just gets a little more smooth. And we think about it less, and then eventually it becomes unconscious competence. And so then what skills do we need to take them through those stages through to better execute the work? And then obviously once it's already ingrained and automatic, on the back end of that, now what do you need to do to stay there? And that's why if you don't want to gain all the weight back in 5 years, you need to have systems and structures on, well, what's actually sustainable? And that's why we say the most important thing when it comes to goal setting and weight loss, what is sustainable is probably going to be best, because it's going to be the thing that 5 years from now will help you maintain even a slow, steady progress at like half a pound a week. That's, what is that, 50? That's 26 pounds a year times 5. No one's going to lose 130 odd pounds. That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
So that's my take on that. Sorry for the monologues or diatribe.
No, and that's, at the end of the day, I think that there's this, and I just want to be really clear here, right? I think a coach has an ethical responsibility that if they no longer have an ability to help somebody achieve the next step in their journey, it is time to part ways, and hopefully you have somebody in your network to refer them to. Right? Like you have a literal joint issue that requires some type of further education, physical therapist, things like that. That is your ethical responsibility to do that. So that comes to a basic fitness goal that maybe you don't have the experience or qualifications to be able to help.
Yeah.
But outside of that situation, you again also have the ethical responsibility to maintain helping this person. Now, I also will say, and you've said this before, I agree and I disagree on certain instances.
Sure.
I could prove the point either way and fight on either side. A coaching relationship with somebody is only good for so long, because at some point in time, it's just not as effective anymore. And I think if the client and the coach can keep things aligned accordingly, then that can last indefinitely, again, under the ethical responsibility rules that we've set forth. But I also do believe over a period of time, there is just a friendship relationship that gets born, that over time, it's like, he's my best friend. I don't mind if I show up to this call 10 minutes late. It's fine. It doesn't matter. It just slowly happens.
Yes.
But all that to say, you should be a goal digger, right? Goal space digger. And at the end of the day, somebody has a goal. They have probably a first, maybe a secondary, tertiary goal when they first come to you. They achieve that first one. The second one may become the first one. Or what I feel like can happen is sometimes like the second one was kind of solved by the first one, or we start to create a level of importance or care about that, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yep.
But what is the next most important goal to them that you can then help them with? And that's where I think sometimes we fail as coaches to have conversations early enough, not just that like, okay, cool, you hit your goal. What's the next goal? It's throughout the journey. Hey, we're seeing the trends. We're getting there. We're moving in that direction. Like, what's the next big thing coming that we need to go focus on?
Yeah. And I think having that foresight just requires a certain level of experience and maturity. And for people that are like, well, I need a certification, or like, how do I know I'm ready? Or like all those things, like that's on you to solve. But at the end of the day, you need to get really good at reading the crystal ball, so to speak. You need to get really good at forecasting what's likely to come up. Where does this need to go? And let's say that you did help someone get ready for a wedding in 3 months and they lost 50 pounds for it. And now on the back end, like, we know that the body is primed to increase the fat cell size. And so it's basically like, all right, cool. I need to make sure that I can survive this crazy thing that you just did to me. I'm going to get retribution. I'm going to hold on to stuff. I'm not going to allow you to build as much lean body mass because that's expensive and I don't have the energy for that. And I don't know if I'm going to have the energy for that. And so you start to identify these problems that, okay, shit, I helped someone get to their goal, but now they have these other issues. Now my hair's falling out. Now I'm, thinning, or now I'm skinny fat, or now I'm frail and I'm injury prone, or I'm depressed. And those are things that frankly you just don't understand. But when you think about the nature of the work that you do, there's an unwinding process. And it's like this in business too. If you hire a contractor, there's an unwinding that has to happen of, well, they helped you establish this thing. Now you have to basically hand it off. And that's where it requires a certain sophistication of a client. And this is something that we see all the time, in that when clients hire you, the thing they hire you for turns out not to be the thing that they actually care about. They'll say, hey, I'm going to lose 5 to 10 pounds. And you'll know it's not the real goal because they stop showing up as excited. They stop hyper-focusing and like doing the things that you're asking them to do because there's a reality of the moment of like, oh shit, I actually have to work. So I would say that those are the cautionary tales going into the goal and clarifying that. And that's I think some of the pre-work that I would say even beyond the relationship. I think the pre-work is the thing that you have to do to get to the goal. And the post-goal is like, what's of interest to you. And it seems like people transition every 5 years or so. Like, you're going to have just a new set of interests. Your professional life is going to be different. Your relationships are going to be different. And that's going to then reprioritize and shuffle things, unless you just can't get married these days. And that's what you want to do because it's 2025 and people ghost in situations that are abundant. But,
Or you can just find a psychopath as a client that every year has to run certain races. And then at the other time of the year, they need to hike 14 miles a day for 5 straight days. And then in between, they want to make sure that they can lose some weight, but also re-heal their joints. So that way their joints don't hurt from all the other abuse. And then they take 1 week off a year because.
And they sneak races in there.
So.
They sneak races in there that aren't planned for.
That's true. That.
Like 4 times, like, what are you doing? Oh. Yeah. Why is your whoop so low?
So, anyways,
that's so funny.
Anything else to add though on being a goal digger?
No, I mean, I think that, and it's the nature of the closer you get, the more meaningful the conversations ideally should become, and that's where you find out like sometimes the work is just a placeholder for the real thing that they're dealing with, and that is a bias because of my mental health background, but like. It's just, you got to evolve as the client evolves, the dynamics are going to evolve. And it's really hard. And I will say this, that if you want to maintain a transactional relationship, and there are people that like that, then you need to do a better job of maybe managing the proximity that you get with that person, not disclosing as much of your personal stuff, letting them share whatever they need to, but it has to be related to the work necessary. And that's probably actually the best way to get someone to their goal in a shorter time frame is you don't get all chummy buddy. You just give them enough relationship stuff to get them to continue to do the thing, knowing that you care a little bit, but you can't have idiot compassion when it comes to that stuff. So that's where I say like it's a fine line of keeping them accountable, keeping them on track, understanding what the real goal is, and then having that be a living process as the entire thing unfolds, which you can always help people solve a problem.
Yeah.
If you understand the problem.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. If you're not being a goal digger, then you're shooting yourself in the foot. A lot of situations, a lot of context, obviously, to add to this.
Yeah.
If you have a friend or a colleague that is a trainer and says, oh, once I help them hit their goal, then they just kind of move on or the program ends, send them this episode because it's just one of those things that they're spending so much time, effort, and energy to acquire the consumer, that client, that they're not actually generating the lifetime value they could be when they should be, right? There's already relationship currency in there. Why let that go to waste? You've already spent that time, effort, and energy. Of course, if you can't help them, it is time to let them go. But outside of that, you should be keeping them in your wheelhouse so you can continue to help them on their journey. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Pump, where we break down the business of fitness and nutrition. Like the episode, subscribe to the channel, throw this to a friend, and we'll see you next time, guys.